fine day.
That's great.
Well, this is what I think.
Everybody's tomorrow morning?
Yeah.
Looks like for soda.
Yeah.
Hold it on.
It looks like we're not avoiding it this
No.
time.
What did I say, 12 inches, Brett?
You started out selling.
11 to 15 now? Yeah. Taking notes last night. Good way to end the vacation.
Perfect time, right?
He's only goes to meet from architects, but
One time you went by my street, you plugged in my road.
we are supposed to be the first to do
I
it.
think the snow gates are a better thing you have than not.
This is from his,
I don't worry about that so much as you knocked over my mailbox.
You guys have a program to pay for another one?
Yeah.
It's like $25.
Minimal fee.
Morning, Russ.
Good morning. Something like,
How's it going? Haven't seen you forever.
there's always, and this will be a wet snow, so there'll be a number of.
Yeah, we don't reimburse for the very fancy
Brakes
mailboxes.
and lights and...
Right, we,
Where?
yeah, we, a tin mailbox,
You go out to County
basically.
Highway shop, there's a marker board up there. So whenever the plow crew comes in, they always mark how many mailboxes they got that day. There's a,
A hit list?
Actually, yeah, skull and crossbones on the fender of their plow truck.
So is there a prize for the least amount of mailboxes for the year?
It all depends on, it's worse than the spring with the slush. Typically, I mean, that's what hits it.
I think it's a pretty good mailbox to hold up against that slush.
So I have one that's like retractable, so I just go pick it out of the ditch and I slide it back on it.
It's going to be heavy by snow.
Well, they make one with a nice spring-loaded post in the bottom of the ground, so you can just, they sell them at Menards, and it's,
Well, they have regular signs now.
Brad will not be here today.
What's that?
Brad Howell will not be here today, so we will not have his report. Okay, okay.
It's 9 o'clock before the morning.
Yes, it is 9 o'clock.
Oh, great. I got 3 left and then I'll be done here. Well, get going. I'll finish these up.
test. You stream the one we're watching.
Thank you for bearing with me while I get a little bit of my paperwork done here this morning. It seems that the crew wants to get paid. I don't know why, So, good morning. It is a few minutes after 9. It is Friday, December 17th, a little unusual, but because of the holidays, we did have to get a meeting in before the end of the year, and this was about the only time that we could do it, so we all agreed to do this morning. That being said, we'll open up the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, and Cindy, you want to lead us today? Sure.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Cindy. Housekeeping chores, if you got a cell phone, which I imagine you do, please silence it or turn it off. And if you do get a call that you have to take, please step out into the rotunda area so you don't disrupt the meeting. Also, this meeting is being streamed live, so if you wish to address the board, more than likely you will be on that live stream. That's just for your information. It's not going to hurt you, it's just that it is all recorded. Well, this whole meeting is recorded. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to bring something before the board today that isn't on the schedule, that isn't on the agenda. We want to make sure we have time allowed for you to express your concerns or whatever your wishes may be, and we would do that during the open. We would not be able to act on it with any action because it is not on the agenda, but we certainly want to hear from you if you have something to say. I see no one raising their hand. How about the board? Does anyone have any conflicts of interest with any of the items on the agenda?
No.
That being said, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
To approve the agenda.
Motion by Hatton, second by Gable. Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. The minutes of the December 17th meeting.
To approve is emailed.
Motion by Hatton,
Second.
second by Van Duzen. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Number 6 on the agenda is a public hearing, an action to approve a malt beverage license application from Gordon Kliegel, doing business as the Rowville Station. And so at this time, I will open the meeting up for a public hearing. Allow anyone that has anyone to to comment on this item. Is there anyone that wishes to give their opinion or their ideas? I see none. So that being said, I will close the public hearing portion of this. And that being said, we would take action if that's the desire of the board.
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion by Hatton. What's the motion?
To approve the malt beverage
application.
license
To approve
application.
the application for the malt beverage license. And who seconded that?
Second that.
And Commissioner Waterman seconded. Any discussion?
Have we had, any input from our law enforcement? Is there any issues that we
No.
need to be aware of?
No, not at this time. Mr. Kliegel just came in and said he'd like to start his business back up again, but he was only applying for the malt beverage license, not the liquor license. So he can sell malt beverage on and off sale.
Now, this does mean they are subject to be spot checked to make certain.
Yeah, like any other license holder, yep, they are.
And we do have unlimited license for malt
Malt
beverage in the
beverage,
county.
there is no limit on those. It's the liquor licenses that we are limited to, and I believe we have one that is unsold at a price of about $80,000.
The malt beverage license, I think we have, 5 or 6 of them in the county, don't we?
Probably more than that.
South Fork, Red Rooster, the casino.
Casino, yep.
Isn't the one out here with the little golf course?
Oh, nope, that's not ours. That got annexed into the city. Cloud 9 is now
Club
city
9,
property.
Club 9.
The barn,
The barn?
or whatever it's called out there.
Yep, yeah.
So, yeah, there's
There'd be 5.
not that many.
Yeah. All right, any more discussion? Any comments? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
I'm going to sign that one right away so I can have Alyssa get it going.
By the way, the cost of that license is,
It's $300. 150 to the county, 150 to the Department of Revenue.
so that's how it's divided up. All right, let's go on to item number 7 then. Monthly reports, emergency management. Jim? Good to see you here, Jim. Are you ready for this weekend?
He's going out with a bang.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Morning, Jim.
I got a couple things this morning. Just an update for you on the disaster declaration process for that September 9th through the 26th. I think it's DR 4469 is what it's called. We did have a preliminary damage assessment here in Watertown with state and FEMA personnel, or in the county, not necessarily in Watertown, but
We visited some sites. We received notification that we did have enough damage to be included in this disaster declaration. So now it'll be a matter of FEMA coming out and doing site inspections, detailed site inspections, and determining whether the site qualifies for assistance or not. So we're one step closer, is all I can tell you at this point.
Is there any timeline on that you have heard or know about?
I haven't heard of any
Whenever.
timeline. Just, yep.
And sometimes it can be a long time.
Well, they're still working with making contact with townships from the spring, so it could be 6 months down the road before we finally get the final answer here. I continue to meet with department head personnel from city and the county, making plans for possible spring flooding. We were continuing to have meetings on that and discussing river level gauges and so forth. And we'll have meetings again this month to discuss that. Just a reminder, I've given you this information before, but just a reminder that we will be hosting a public information officer class on January 28th and 29th. And we'll be sending some personnel from the sheriff's office to that training to work as public information officers for the events. We had the hazmat class up at Lake Area Tech, and that was on December 13th. We had very good turnout for that, and so we've hosted 2 of those classes this fall and into the winter for awareness level hazmat training. Jamie Torstensen will be starting on January 1st, and we'll be working together starting on January 1st, and I'll have him up here for the next report that we have. And one thing, and Cindy, if you could put this on the calendar for probably the next meeting. I'm listed as the contact person for the Title VI program. And so it'll be up to the commission to decide if you want the new emergency management director to be the Title VI coordinator, or if you want that assigned to somebody else. But currently, myself and the emergency management office, we are the go-to people for the Title VI program. And for if you aren't aware of what I'm talking about, it's the program that we have to have in place for discrimination complaints and so forth on contracts and other things.
You work hand in hand with Lake Area Tech?
What's that?
Does Lake Area Tech have any involvement on that Title VI?
Not in Title VI, no.
Every government organization has to.
It's more, this has more to do with contracts that we have, especially, like the County Highway Department contracts for
Grant
road
funding.
construction and funding through Federal Highway Administration. And
Got it.
We have to be in compliance.
We have to be in compliance. We have to have our policy, and we have to have procedures in place, and which we do.
Which we
And-
publish in January, take care of in January each year, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
How often does that need to be updated? Because we just went through
The
that. wasn't it?
coordinator does not need to be updated
No,
periodically,
but the
we
policy.
have to restate our policy every January.
Right,
is,
and we
okay.
have to advertise it in the newspaper and put it out to the public, and it has to be posted, and
Yeah.
so, and we're working on that, and we'll be taking care of that here in the month of January, so.
So that'd be a good opportunity to teach Jamie how to do that.
Yes. We'll-
Get him set him up, huh?
We'll give him this book and say, sit down and read.
Yeah.
So, anyway, the next thing, and the last thing I've got here this morning that I want to talk to you about is the potential for heavy snow coming up this weekend. And they've just been increasing the amounts. This morning, the last report I got that came out of the National Weather Service office at 4 o'clock this morning, we are in an area where, we could receive 12 to 18 up to 19 inches of snow right now. And the biggest concern that they have is the wind that comes up on Sunday. They're expecting the winds to come up on Sunday up to about 40 miles per hour. But And I'll just read what they put out to us this morning. It is heavy snow mixed with light freezing precipitation possible. Total snow accumulations of 15 to 19 inches and ice accumulations of 1/10 to 2/10 of an inch possible. Wind gusts as high as 40 miles per hour. And that's for our area specifically. So we're gearing up for it. I know the Sheriff's Office will be in emergency management, will be prepared for any challenges that we have as a result of this winter blizzard. So,
All right.
okay, any questions?
Any questions for Jim? You didn't have to leave us on such a bad note.
No, I'm going out. It's going to be nice.
This is worst case scenario, right?
This is the worst case scenario. Yep. You know that they're talking 19 inches, we may get 5, or that'd be.
Let's hope.
Started out at 7,
For that,
so.
yeah.
Right.
You do fly out tonight, isn't that right?
Do I fly out? I wish. But thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim.
The sheriff, Mr. Brad Hall, is not with us today. He is tied up with some other obligations, so and he doesn't have a written report here. We did get I've been communicating with him, and there is a written report in reference to an item that's coming up later on. By the way, I did make coffee this morning. I don't know how good it is, Lee, but I made coffee. So let's move on to item number 8 on the agenda, and that's closing audit conference with the South Dakota Department of Legislative Audit, and that is Mr. Russell Olson. Mr. Olson is with the South Dakota Department of Legislative Audit, so good morning.
Good morning.
And share with us your findings. Introduce yourself so that the press and everyone gets your name for sure.
Yes,
It's a tough name, right?
Yes, that is. My name is Russ Olson. I'm the local government audit manager with the Department of Legislative Audit. And what we're here today to do is we have
Talking to the mic there, Russ, so the media can get you.
we have completed the calendar year 2017-2018 audit of Cottington County. We got good news to share with you today. Based on our audit, we are going to be issuing an unmodified opinion on Cottington County's financial statements, which is the best opinion you can receive. The other items, that we have, what I've handed out to you is our management letter. There will be no written findings in your audit report. But what this is a document that basically, there's still one item that we wanted to bring to your attention, which I'm sure you're all aware of, but basically, what we look at is deficiencies in internal control. Material weaknesses is the worst deficiency. We have none of those. We have significant deficiencies, which are the next level down, and we don't have any of those in our report. Basically, what we have is just a management letter comment. If you flip to the second page, we have the various areas of what we disclose. No material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies. We did have one deficiency that we wanted to bring to your attention, and that was at the end of 2018, the Emergency Management Fund had a deficit fund balance of $3,096. We recommend the county ensure that it has no negative fund balances at the year end. Any negative fund balances basically constitute a borrowing from other funds. And again, we've discussed this with the county auditor's office.
Remind the board, this was due to some Homeland Security grant projects that we paid for in December that we did not get reimbursed for before the end of the year. So it kind of had to do with a change in clerical over there. We just, it just hadn't happened for a couple of years. So we had the funds coming, but they did not get here before the end of the year. So that's what it was. And we are working on, Sherry and I are working on our communication to make sure we get those funds spent earlier in the year to ensure we get the money back.
So in theory, Mr. Chairman, just a question. So in theory, like if you knew about that situation, in detail, we'd cover that with the state commissioner's contingency.
Well, this was actually cash. This was actually cash, so we would have had to transfer operating cash out of the general fund into emergency management. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and you'll get into the situation with what's taken place over this year, there, with a lot of the programs that are going on, there's a lot of things that go on in emergency management and in your highway. So you want to monitor those situations to make sure that if they don't have the cash flow to take care of some of these bills that you got to pay up front and get reimbursed for, that you make sure that they've got that. It can just be a temporary situation where you give them some cash flow money just for a period of time until the reimbursement comes back in.
Yeah, it was just something I did not catch. I did not realize we were that close, and we had spent a huge amount of the or Homeland Security money at the end of the year, which we're going to avoid in the future. Or we'll do an operating cash transfer.
Good. Well, that's good. Good news.
Got one other thing I wanted to touch base with you, and that I wanted to thank you for one other item, and that is the last audit we had a internal control comment on your sheriff's office. There were some procedure things that weren't being done correctly, weren't being monitored correctly. I want to thank you for responding to that comment. We reviewed that situation this audit, and we did not have any issues or problems. They corrected the things that we basically had brought forward and said that they should do. We like to see that. I mean, when we bring things up and we have a county like yours that responds to those things, that's what is necessary, and that's what we like to see. So from that standpoint, we want to thank you very much for that. The staff that was here had a great working relationship with your auditor and treasurer's office and all your county employees, and so we want to thank them for their assistance in this process. We'll be looking forward, down the road in a couple of years here, we'll do the next audit. This one might be a little different with the disasters that have been declared and listening
All
to your
the
emergency
federal money
management.
coming through, it's,
Yeah.
might push us into a new threshold.
Yeah. So that is, with the threshold, if we get over that $750,000 in 1 year, then you'll be required to have a federal or uniform guidance audit. Takes more time, a lot more detail, more expense. And so that's something we'll monitor over the next couple of years to see where we're at with that. But other than that, any questions, any concerns? I will be leaving a survey with Cindy that she can fill out and send into our office. Let us know if there's anything we can do better, because we're always
It was
trying to
very
respond.
painless. They were following the notes from the previous audit staff, and they didn't interrupt us hardly at all.
That's good.
Very easy to work with, yeah. That was one of the easiest audits we've been through.
You don't hear that very often when people say that.
I know, but it was. It was just, you're done already, and yeah.
We appreciate you and your staff coming and doing the audit, so thank you.
Thank you very much. We
Thank you.
appreciate it, and drive safe. I imagine you're headed back to Pier.
I got a few things. No, I'm actually, I have my office in Brookings.
Oh, well.
I got staff stationed throughout the state,
Sure.
13 local auditors, and so rather than being in Pier, I have my office in Brookings and just basically take care of it from there.
Do you realize how lucky you are?
Yes, I do.
Oh, that's fine.
I do need a motion to authorize Myron to sign.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion by Van Duzen and a second by Gable. Any discussion?
Sign the audit letter.
Any discussion? This is just for me to sign the audit letter.
Thank you.
Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. I shall sign it as we speak.
Thanks,
Thank you
Chris.
very much.
See ya.
Thank you.
All right, let's go on then to item number 9, action to approve a copier fax scanner purchase for the auditor's office, and that is in your packet. And it's a,
This is an item that I had in the budget for 2019, but due to the need to upgrade computers to Windows 10 before January, I swapped out a couple of projects anyway. The total cost will be $6,771. Like I said, I did budget for this. With the upcoming election year, the copier we currently have was purchased in 2013. It's got a lot of copies on it, and we do make all of our own sample ballots. So I know that copier's going to get a workout this year. So that's my request, is authority to purchase that copier.
I'll make that
motion by Hatton.
motion.
Second by
I'll second.
Gable. Any discussion?
And we do share this copier with anybody who needs it. It is a color copier, and we don't have a lot of those in the building.
Now, I didn't study this very carefully. Does this include a service contract or not? Or-
Yeah, we pay
Yeah,
by the
there's a
month.
service
Yep,
agreement,
Yep,
yep.
we pay by the month, the number of copies we make. So during an election cycle, it'll be a little bit more because we'll have a heavier load of copiers.
Cindy, this is a purchase, not a lease agreement?
This is a purchase, yep. That's what I have been doing, is budgeting for those to purchase, because a lease agreement, the interest is, you would be amazed at how much interest you're paying if you lease these type of things, so.
And who is this being purchased through?
Oh, I'm sorry, Office Peeps.
Office Beach.
Office Peeps, yep, they give us a very good price. You can see that the list price is $21,000, but we get a
I know.
government pricing of $6,771.
That's amazing,
Take
isn't
that
it?
for what it is.
And what's the, Mr. Chairman, sorry.
Go ahead.
Would you take delivery on this like right away, or did you?
I don't know how soon it'll get here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just have to let him know that the request was approved so he can get it going.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Good discussion, though. All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. You're going to get your new piece of equipment. Number 10 on the agenda, action to approve an agreement for 2020 zoning services with First District Association of Local Governments. And Luke is in the audience, so come on up, Luke, and give us your pitch.
Sure.
It better be
Morning,
tough.
Sure. It is that time of year, the very last possible day apparently to get in and talk about whether or not you want to have a zoning officer going into next year. We, out of our office, in all seriousness,
Just
we've
what
always...
do they do?
What's that? Yeah, exactly.
What do they do?
Our office has come to obviously enjoy the relationship. This seems to, I know it's worked out for us. It's been awful handy for me, keeping me in a job at the office as well. But I know starting all the way back in 2004, long before I frankly had even moved to town, this had started, and the county's been contracting with First District to do so ever since. We've, as far as handling that office, it's primarily intended to be self-sustaining with building permit revenues and special permits. In most years, it winds up being somewhere 90 to 95% funded just by fees generated. This year, we're going to be way above that, but I'm not going to count on that every year. In the end, though, what we have, the contract that's before you now is the same. It is absolutely the same as we had last year. Winds up being $48 an hour. I think the
$48 an hour.
yeah, 28.8 I think is what that comes out to at a top end. And then the whole goal to that is that in the past, I know what you've told me is that if it takes more hours, then use more hours. But just kind of let you know if we're going to blow through it, and that's kind of what we've been trying to do. This is probably an opportune time to tell you we're going to probably slightly blow through what we had on there, but it won't be by much, I don't think. as far
Minimum
as
of
time.
500 with the max in the contract of 600.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I'd
then-
make a motion to approve this.
Then the mileage, we do pay Luke mileage, 58 cents per mile, and that mileage costs not to exceed $650. And I know with what we're going through right now in the county with Wind Tower, you do a lot of driving around and checking it out, so
Yeah.
we would, so anyway, all right.
And the mileage will follow with federal mileage, whatever
Yeah.
you'd pay any
Yep.
other employee.
There is also a total maximum contract amount of $29,450
Yep.
in there.
All right, what's the desire of the board?
I made a motion.
I'll
Oh,
second.
Brenda made a motion, all right. Brenda made a motion to approve, is that the motion?
Yes,
Is
it's
there
to
a second to
approve.
that? By Lee Gable?
I guess I would just like to add the benefit of what Luke does for our planning and zoning meetings with all the staff reports and all the research that he does is phenomenal and helps us make our decisions according to that information. So appreciate all the work and time that you put into that.
The other thing to add is that this is really a pretty good deal when you consider the zoning services that we get. And that's because I think the First District's business model of working with multiple jurisdictions is kind of an economy of scale that we can all benefit from, so.
And I would just echo what you've just heard, Luke is on speed dial for me. I communicate with Luke a lot, and I just really appreciate his expertise in the field, and it's always good to have somebody like that you can call on for good advice, and he's always done that in the past. Any more?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to add just one thing, and that is the accessibility to Luke is good to have, and that's money well spent, I think, on behalf of Cottington County. So keep up the good work, Luke. We appreciate your service. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, any more discussion? Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. And I have them signed for you already. Luke?
They're just as far as handy time to talk about broad sweeping changes. No, I just wanted to point out, with us having moved, switching offices in our base office, what oftentimes, I know some of you have gotten a hold of me, or you'll see they'll call back after the office hours, which are 9 to 11, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, which have been long established since before I was there. I'll probably wind up starting my day out there after dropping kids off at school. But the bottom line is that if I've got some of those phone calls, I'll probably do some catch up there as opposed to sticking around later. I'll probably start a little earlier and then keep the office hours. But I just kind of want to give you that heads up that I'll probably kind of switch a little bit of that around. It's not that I'm going to be, I can't wait to find out if that actually happens, but that's kind of my goal, is to start it over there. And then the other thing I want to point out, I've had some questions over the last year over zoning ordinance not being on the website, and that comes back to a state law that had changed last year. We don't have that verbatim on the website because we've run into instances where we've had rules or decisions be invalidated due to certain things all over the state. In this case, there's a state law that indicates that if you put a zoning ordinance on the website, that indicates that it is completely and totally the accurate version, and without having scanned the strike and underline version, I can't make a guarantee of that, because whether it be a word error or my own error, I don't want to do that. So the bottom line is, my plan is, I haven't updated the frequently asked questions section of our webpage since I started, and my plan is basically to go through and do some of those about the top 10 zoning questions we get, and go through that. And yeah, it may include some quotes from the zoning ordinance, but that is kind of going to be my way to work around that, is try to answer some of those questions and head them off at the pass.
Go ahead, Blake.
Yeah, so we talked about this at our last meeting when we had some legislators visit. We brought this topic up, that kind of that, it was HB, I want to say 1125 from last year that created this law. And it's, it's, the intent's good. I mean, you want, stuff should be accurate if it's on a county website, but you don't want to get sued over a typo, basically.
Exactly.
It's kind of the issue. So we mentioned it, and, the legislators all here said that, obviously that wasn't the intent.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if maybe the planning districts might have some ideas on how we could approach our legislators with some wording change. Maybe allow counties to publish a disclaimer or something like that.
Yeah, I really think that's all that it takes. I mean, I'll admit it's an overabundance of caution, but we find ourselves in lawsuits for a lot less clear things. I'm not even going to call them violation, but items.
Yeah.
I'm sure not going to run headfirst into a question. Bottom line is, by all means, have them reach out to us, or we can reach out to anybody too if they would like. But
I think the issue
because I can
was-
give them a heads up as to what we run into.
Yeah.
And as we know, there are people out there that go through that stuff line by line and word by word, just looking for something that was spelled wrong or was a misunderstanding or whatever. And that's why we end up in lawsuits. So, any more questions for Luke? Keep up the good work, Luke. Thank you. All right, I think I need to vote on it yet.
Yeah.
I did. Did we vote on it?
No, we didn't vote.
Yes, you did.
Oh, we did vote?
I thought we did. Yep. Here you go. Here.
It passed, Luke. Okay. Thanks.
See you later.
All right, let's go on then to item number 11, and that's action to renew the contract with LSS, Lutheran Social Service, for the Behavioral Health Deflection Program, BHDP program. And that being said, who wants to take the lead on this? We have the contract in front of you, and Sarah, you want to share with us, fill us in on what we have here and what is the request for?
Yes, I'm just requesting to renew the contract. We have added an addition to allow some of the referrals to come through my office, and I'll explain that why that is as well. In addition, let's see. So to start with, the first full year that we had was 2017. I believe you guys have that handout information with the graph. In 2017, we had 108 referrals. 51% of those were viable contacts, and out of that, 28% received services. Oh, do you have that sheet?
Should be in that's all.
Yeah, I've got copies if you need.
This one. Yeah.
You got it? Okay. Got it? Okay. And then, so there was 18 services provided for 15 people. So just to break down your chart, we have the percentages where 72% were refused. That was 39 people. 9% or 17% received basic case management. That was 9. And 11% received intensive case management, and that's the number of 6 people.
Before we get to...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
I was just going to ask, what was the number you had for the 72% refused?
39 people was 72%. And then the basic case management, and those are people that require services, that was 9, and then intensive case management is 6, and those are the individuals that can't do things on their own and they need additional services, and they become active cases. They can take 10 to 15.
And just to orient us to this, to your pie chart, so the pie chart corresponds to the 51% of viable contacts.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
There was 13 that were juveniles and 40 that the contact information was not valid. And so then when we move on to kind of what we see is that progression of that in 2018, then we had 185 referrals where 54% were viable contacts, and out of those viable contacts, 56% received services. So we see that transition of more connecting to the services. There were 73 services provided for 55 people. So in the refused, we see that number went down quite a bit, and then but you're 44% refused, which is 44 people. And for the basic case management, there was 45%, which was 44 people, and then 11 individuals received intensive case management on that. And so then
I have a question. Before we go too much further, I guess, what is a viable contact?
That means that they weren't, they were not juvenile. It says right on there that 75% were viable contacts. They were not juveniles. In the beginning, we had decided we weren't going to reach out to juveniles because that requires the parents, and that there were other programs, and that the information provided was valid contact information. So when the law enforcement, if they forward information that's not valid, we aren't able to contact that. The program's not able to contact that individual. So if they were juveniles, we did not reach out to those individuals because we can't reach to the juveniles. You have to reach to the parents, and that program has not expanded to that. And then if the valid contact information was not valid. So if I gave you a number that was not valid to the officer, those are not valid, so they were not valid contact. And then so then in 2019, we noticed that the referrals went down. We had 83 referrals, and that is something that we do need to work on. We're getting some referrals from other agencies that have had law enforcement contact, and so many are getting missed. So we're talking about some options on how to kind of get that back up increased. Out of those, 75% were viable contacts. And so I think in there, what we're seeing too is the catching on that juveniles aren't a viable referral and not getting those, and then valid contact information. Out of that, actually I need to, when I was reviewing the data on that one, the chart, and I'm not sure why it was not accurate. It was not gathering the numbers accurate, so I have an updated. A corrected version of that. And so on those, we have where 60% received services, 38 services were provided for 22 people. So we had the updated version, 39% refused, that was 16 people. Basic case management, the 42% was 17 individuals. We have 5 individuals with intensive case management, and currently we have 3 that are in progress. What we're noticing though on the intensive case management, the type of referrals that we're receiving are increasing on the type of need. I did also provide you a graph of 2018 and 2019 of what type of services people are receiving. Mental health is still being the biggest. That's just a breakdown for you as far as the different types of services. Still in 2018, 2019, mental health and housing are your 2 biggest services. What we're finding with this program is it reaches out, it's a hands-on for individuals who need additional help. We've worked with individuals who cannot write, who maybe cannot read, no transportation. And so there are also individuals that are beyond just a referral. So it reaches out, it provides case management, it works to remove barriers. And also sometimes it's misunderstanding. For an individual, they might misunderstand why they might need counseling and how it could benefit them, different belief systems, or why they may need to work a job, or how to get it, some of the basics. So the intensity case type management is increasing, even though the numbers. And it also, we have found the program, it helps with the interim during the connection. What we have found, it can take, on an average for some of the people we're working with, about 60 days to get into treatment. Some individuals that we work with are not open to treatment to start with, and then maybe after a couple failures in other areas, then they're willing to say, okay, I guess this is something I need to do. It takes right now 90 days for voc rehab. It takes us about 30 days to get an appointment in, and it takes 60 days for that paperwork before they can get in. And that voc rehab are for these individuals that they aren't able to work without some help. They need some basic training. It's simply, I mean, we've had to work with some, like, we need you to take a shower type thing if you're going to go in for an interview. So the type of clientele. With Social Security, some of them too are just pending that Social Security. So this is that interim to connect them while they're waiting for that. We are identifying people at risk earlier, and it reaches out to increase the chances of connection. And so what's happening too is we're working with individuals that have burnt bridges with other people and other agencies, and so this is a neutral party to come in and help with that. And I do have Mary Beth here that she's going to talk about her personal experience with the program to add on to that. But what we're finding that as LSS is connecting individuals to services, those agencies are calling us to connect as well. And so some of the referrals that we received from Deputy State's Attorney Office, we had received a referral from the Judge McCann gave us a referral. And so these are people that were missed through the police reports that we received after. We received referral from Transit, Department of Labor, Independent Living Choices, ICAP, Costello's, Cornerstone Rescue, which is the Veterans Program. So they're coming to us for a couple reasons. One, this person isn't a fit for our program. Are you able to help them, facilitate, or this is beyond what we're able to do as well. So, and then we also do receive from the Beacon Center as well. We're identifying earlier, which is really what we want to do, but we are the clientele we are working in are higher needs and take a little bit longer, so the intensity is increase, especially when we have individuals who aren't able to work. We have one individual recently just went to Teen Challenge. No, I take that. Yes, one went to Teen Challenge, and then one went to Keystone, and then we're also able to coordinate services with HSC, and so they're reaching out to us a little bit more as well. So that's the reason for the extension that we asked for the referrals to come through this office. If there are people that we're seeing that if they don't get help could be potential behavioral contacts, we'd like to be able to refer those as well on that. The ones that have had contact with law enforcement, we have moved forward on those. You know, like for example, I have one individual here where the referral services were Watertown Housing, mental health, the contact with another case manager to assist with assisted living, then also this individual connection to services with one was a fraud sweepstakes, a lawyer, a psychologist with the VA, energy assistant, Salvation Army, and connection to purchase a space heater. So she just kind of covers the gamut. And so I would like for Mary Beth to come talk a little bit, share about her, because I think personal experiences puts a little bit more life into that data and that information. So thank you, Mary Beth.
So can you turn her mic on for her there, Sarah? Yep, there it is. Good morning, Mary Beth.
Good morning, you guys.
Good morning.
Thank you for allowing me to come here and stuff. And I really want you guys to know how important this service is. And I talk
Could you
from
talk
my-
right into the mic?
And identify herself.
And identify yourself.
I'm Mary Beth Stinson. And most of you do know, or some of you do know, I work for Salvation Army. But I am here because this is a personal thing for me. I have a sister who is a very bad alcoholic, does drugs. She is the case scenario of burning bridges. I come from a very large family. There's a lot of us here. I'm the first one to tell you that my sister's not allowed in my home. Not because I don't love her, but because I don't like her choices. And she has done a lot through other people, with other organizations. When we were struggling to find something, Dory actually tried to commit suicide. And through the hospital is basically how we found out about this program. And working at Salvation Army, I didn't even know this program existed. So somewhere there's a lapse too on what we all do as a common factor. Sarah went out of her way to give us contacts. Once we contacted her, they put her up in the homeless room at Palace. Let her stay a lot longer than she should have, but because they are that type of person. Through this program, we met Christina through Lutheran Social Services. I firmly believe that Lutheran Social Service is not trying to overpower anything. I think they are willing to work very, very hard with the clientele that they're getting. Through them, we met Christina, who's an amazing woman. Keep her as long as you can because she is awesome. She has helped Dory write a resume, get a place to live. She's living up in East Point. Do job interviews. She's clean, which is the first time in I don't know how long that she's clean, not only without alcohol, but bodily. She is very clean. She's showing her how to do good choices. And Dory's not a young woman. She's 56 years old. So this isn't something that just happened overnight. We've also worked with Catherine at the Beacon Center. She's working with us, and so is Christina, to try and get Dory some type of disability, because right now she has no income. She's not old enough for Social Security, all these things. Midwest Medical worked with us. Dory's on 24/7 oxygen. Worked with us. I rented a machine from them, and after a while they donated the machine, the big machine, to us. So, you know, this program, and I understand, and I might be a little out of line, that a 2-on-1 thing is being talked about. I think that's a fantastic idea, but you need to have these people. They need that personal touch. They know where to go. They know what to say. And all this comes from the bottom of my heart, because my sister would be dead without this program, and I'm 100% positive of that. So when you think about what Sarah's asking and stuff, please really think. I mean, there's so many of us that have so much, and there's so many of them out there that have nothing. And this is a real benefit on helping. So,
All right, thank you for sharing with us. We appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
I think Mary Beth said it earlier. How did you say that? It takes a
whole village to raise one person.
Right, thank you. I have a question on the bar graph here. I was just looking, in 2018, as far as mental health, it looked like, if the numbers are hard to read, it looks like there was 19 individuals that requested and got service, and then in 2019 it dropped to 17. There was 2 less. Is that right?
Yeah.
Here, you can look at mine. Oh,
yes,
okay.
yes, that is correct.
But actually the percentage went up.
That's because the numbers went down. I've got a graph that I wrote.
Like
So in 2018, 73 services were provided. So in 2019, 38 services were provided. So when you look at the statistics percentage, that's going to affect that. So actually, if you were to take that, the number that received mental health would be an increase, since you have half the individuals on that. So what we find is people need multiple services quite often. It also, we have found too, that if we can help with the housing and the income supports and those other services, when they do meet with their mental health professional, they can actually go straight into that counseling. And the reason they can go straight into that counseling, because they've had those, if you guys are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of need, they've got some of those basic needs met, so then they can begin to focus on those. Some of the things, like we have 2 families for sure that I'm aware of, and I'm not all that, I don't always know all these, but these are 2 that they actually had lost, the situations were traumatic, domestic violence, and children were then taken from the home, that both have gotten their kids back. But one of the benefits of this program was helping that individual to stay calm, to not self-sabotage, because when you're hurting like that and you're going through that trauma, you just, I guess for lack of better words, you flip your lid, you wig out. And we were really able to help them kind of stay in that position of staying calm, and so then they're reunited, because that's really what they want. It's just not always how the behavior comes out and stuff. And so both these 2 that they just stop in occasionally because they're just so happy to have that and have their kids back and have that stability. So then we're making that change down the road. So now these kids can have that opportunity for healthier, and then it just keeps on going, which it definitely affects the cost of all your other programs. It increases the length of life, but it decreases the cost to the court system.
So I have a question on this chart also that you just handed out that has the different types of services. Where were they provided?
Actually, I'm not keeping as close track to that, but, the housing, I would have to dig into that, but I do know we work with Watertown Housing, with Costello's, income supports. That would be either like your Social Security or getting them job or TANF. The mental health services, when I last spoke to Mary, the director, who is now the director for the state of LSS, so LSS will be getting a director, only 1 individual that got mental health services was through LSS. Otherwise, they were all other agencies. So, but I've not asked them to keep track of the actual agency. That's not on the information, so I cannot for sure answer that. I would assume transportation's transit.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just to pick up on Commissioner Hannon's question. So, like I say, you have a lot of mental health cases here, or mental health needs for mental health services. Who provides that, generally speaking?
It would most likely, the people that we work with have no funds, so the only agency that would be able to produce that would be people that would be through the Human Service Agency. And I know that they have given rides. One of the reasons I think we've increased the ability to connect people has been, we started utilizing what was in the contract, the cell phone, so police officers can contact Christina directly, and then also they are able to contact a number that's not associated with the provider, and then secondary is she's able, that transportation piece too, she's able to provide those services, so she does give rides to those. Speaking to them, they've told us that because if someone does not have income, HSA is the primary person. Now, if that individual refuses that, they do make an attempt to try to work what that individual is looking to seek. For example, we had one individual, they just said, you know, I've been there, I've done that, and I burnt that bridge, and I kind of want a new start. And so she works within that respect of that to work with them. If it's possible to, because we have had individuals that have gone to Behavioral Health and Human Service Center down in Sioux Falls. So if someone gets to that point and they need those services, I would assume those are marked as mental health as well. So.
Also, I guess I would ask, can you define what intensive care and basic care, define that?
Yep, so the basic case management is when somebody calls in and they're not going to necessarily need ongoing services and they don't actually sign up and enroll under Christina, so they're a person that calls back, they'll say, I need, this is my situation, so I'm going to try to put it together an example without, for example, so law enforcement maybe got called to a scene and the issue was maybe a welfare check on somebody. They're following up, and what they find out is maybe the ongoing underlying issue is I just lost my job, or I just broke up with the relationship. And so that individual has the ability, once they're kind of connected to different services, to call her back, but don't need that as intensive. The intensive case management ones are the ones that we're working with who need that longer term and significant services. For example, the one individual where we received from the judge was he had been, I think, I can double check it up, but I think when Becky sent me the records, there was over 20 arrests for no trespassing, sleeping, and the final arrest was for stealing $6 worth of food. The individual had been homeless for 3 to 4 months, and it's taking a little bit more intensive case management. We had one individual who cannot write. The neuropathy is so bad, is unable to write, so she will help fill out those with those applications and stuff. So that intensive case management, they're enrolled, and it's going to take longer term because they're individuals, a little bit what Mary Beth explained, they're individuals that they have needs, whatever their choices have been throughout their whole life, there probably is now affecting the medical. And you know the situation where we work that and the length of time that it takes. And how is somebody supposed to live for a year and a half before the Social Security comes in with no funding? And so it's trying to, what's the resource and how can we connect them to? So those cases will take, some of those cases when they come in that first week, we probably are spending the bulk of the hours on that, and we are developing a team. And so like right now we've got one individual where we're developing the peer support so we can get that person stabilized through peer supports and other programs.
So
higher level of need.
When these individuals are referred, where are they getting referred to?
Well, these different services, but like I said, I didn't ask them to track the actual agency.
Right, I'm not talking about that exactly. Like, you had made a comment about LSS has no funding, so like HSA, you said, has grant funding and that sort of resources that those individuals could receive from HSA, but not LSS.
LSS has a little bit of services that they can provide, but when it comes to specifically mental health services, if someone does not have insurance, they are limited on their options. Like if I go, it's the same thing with me. What we look at is, what do you have? The question is, we're looking at the client. The client is, what do you have and what do you need? If I have health insurance, these are your options and your choices. If you don't, then HSA. The bulk of the individuals we work with do not have health insurance because they do not have income.
So are you referring them, or are they being referred to HSA?
most of them, it's up to that individual to where they want to go. But a bulk of them would be referred or given the appointments. She helps facilitate setting up the appointments, but I wouldn't say 100% are. If that individual says, this is not where I want to go, or this is my counselor, they're going to connect them to the counselor that they are.
It's up to the individual client.
Yes, because the individual, yeah. But if the issue is I don't have any money, and they need that income base, then that would be their resource that they have.
Right, because HSA has mental health, psychiatric, substance abuse, they have detox, they have all those sorts of services that they can provide these individuals because they get funding for that.
Right, but if someone's refusing to go there, we will look at other options, or if they need long-term. But we do work with the client, but that would be a primary resource, but I'm not going to say it could be permanent, because I know other people have other counselors and have insurance. It's for that individual and what service they need and where they're willing to work within their ability.
So I had a couple questions, Mr. Chairman. Just
go ahead, Lee.
One was, I guess, when you're talking percentages of referrals, you mentioned some other sources of referrals like Department of Labor, Transit, ICAP, a judge, and the State's Attorney's Office. What percentage of the overall referrals are law enforcement?
So what we did with these, I'm asking to be able to expand that, because those referrals that came through, out of those, the only ones that we went back and reconnected was if they have had law enforcement. And so out of those lists last year, we had 9 that we could connect back to case notes, and out of those 9, 8 accepted the service. So we have a higher increase if they're coming through these other referrals, but we had 9. But a lot of those individuals, we're having to tell them, I cannot at this time, because the contract has to come through law enforcement. That's why I'm asking in that extension to expand it to come through this office. If we're able to connect them back to where they were law enforcement, then we were able to connect them. It's a very good question, but at this time, we're kind of limited unless they have law enforcement contact to be able to refer that.
9 seems like a pretty low number to me. Is there a breakdown in communication between law enforcement and the office? Or what's the...
The 9 were ones that we received from other places.
So those are the non-law enforcement?
The non-law, that we went back and were able to connect them to law enforcement. But I do think we do need to improve our communication on the services. What we've noticed, our referrals from law enforcement keeps going down and down. The ones we do receive are often the ones that are been put on a hold. And so we would like to work on increasing that communication of what type of referrals. So for example, the one I received from the state's attorney, going back to them and saying this is an appropriate referral because the individual had law enforcement contact. The individual that we got from the judge had 22, I think it was, of contacts, and saying, you know what, this is a good scenario. This would be a good fit. So I think the biggest disconnect is it's gotten into people's head that this is CIT, and this is not CIT. This is helping people that you can see that they're heading down a path of that behavior on their law enforcement and connecting them to that services.
I would say maybe at this point we do have a law enforcement officer here, maybe give him an opportunity to explain, because I honestly think with the CIT training is why you're seeing less, because they are now trained in order to deflect this when they're out on the streets and taking care of it at that situation, and these referrals aren't happening because they're diffusing the problem right then and there. So I guess
Mr. Toomey, would you come on up and
ask for him to have an opportunity to explain from
try to answer that question that Commissioner Hatton just posed.
And these are programs.
Would you introduce yourself? Would you introduce yourself?
Sure.
You're on.
I'm Tim Toomey, Assistant Chief of Police with Watertown, and thank you for the opportunity to appear in front of the Commission. First, I want to applaud the effort of the deflection program. Mental health and substance abuse, homelessness, those are all critical issues in our community, and any attempt that we have to cure those problems or help those problems is a valiant attempt. So I applaud the effort. As far as the deflection program, we've worked with it for 2 years now. I come with the consensus of my chief as well. Our department is failing to see the efficacy of the program. It's with our partnership with HSA, it's not it's kind of a complication of services, you know, and it's ambiguous. Our officers struggle. It's always a question. It's always an argument between the records division and our officers. Well, what do we refer? What do we refer? What do we refer? You know, when with CIT training, which HSA pretty much provided us, Commissioner Hanton is correct that we were able to diffuse the situation right on the street. You know, I know the exact case she's talking about with the men with the 22 contacts. Maybe that would have been appropriate, but as far as mental health and immediate crisis intervention, HSA has been a strong partner of ours. That's our policy. That's our procedure. So that's our go-to agency, and it's not going to change. We have no complaints about our partnership with HSA. So I'll answer any specific questions, but we just failed to see the efficacy of the program. We feel that with the potential of 211 and be able to make referrals that way, for that man with no place to live, we can refer them to 211 to obtain those services, you know, and that's simple. So for law enforcement on the street, going call to call, we like efficiency, and that would be efficient.
Mr. Chairman, just a couple of questions since you're both here. So I guess as I'm listening to the different services that the deflection program provides, to me it sounds kind of like what the welfare office does. I mean, pretty much it's the kind of thing. So, and I know that from time to time the law enforcement officer will say, have you gone over to see Sarah at the welfare office? I know we'll ask those kind of questions, and so it seems to me like we're trying to, maybe it's we are trying to address a problem. So I think it's a really good thing that we've worked on this. I mean, if nothing else, and it seems there are needs there that are out there. So the question is, how do we, is this the best way to connect us? So kind of the question. So if I'm thinking a little bit out loud here, but it seems to me that maybe there's something we should look at to, is it that the welfare office needs some help? I mean, with the capacity to handle all this kind of stuff, or, I'm not sure what the answer is at this point, but that's kind of if that's kind of where we're going, and what's the difference between, say, what the welfare office does day to day versus what the deflection office does day to day is maybe the question to answer.
So when we first started the program, we did approach it as having it within the office, and that wasn't accepted, so that's why we went through a contract. And the services that are provided are beyond what my office is able to do, because it is outreach. You have to actually leave the office, and at this time, it's my understanding that that's not acceptable. So you have to be able to leave. You'd have to look at the vehicle and providing those rides if you want to go to that point. Is it something that can be done in office? Yes, but you would have to expand the services within the office to be able to do that, to take those calls. So you'd have to look at that. Right now, LSS is taking on that liability. I mean, I agree with what Tim says as far as crisis services and HSA. They do a fantastic job, and we rely on that. This is just that follow-up. Well, these people that, if the referral services worked and that's all they needed, we wouldn't need this program. This is actually reaching out to them and saying, okay, is there that people that are willing to, after that incident is calmed down? And what we have found too is a lot of those individuals don't recall what was said to them at the time of those holds and stuff. But we're not trying. It's not trying to that conflict. Do you know what time your appointment is? No, I don't. And so then it's following up to say, okay, this is what it is, because there's a lot that's going on during that time and that connection. So, and it's the time after that, or getting that number. Now we have someone else to contact. So we have some of them that will just contact that program versus that. And we see it as a benefit because it frees up those counselors at those agencies to provide those counseling services when they're needed. So I think that's, you hit on it, just what I think it's getting that understanding. Here's that crisis point. Keep doing that. You absolutely need to keep doing that. That's what's needed. This is just kind of following up around that and saying, do you remember when your appointment was? Do you understand this? How are you doing? Do you need other services such as substance use, or not substance use, like food or other these supports to provide that? So it's coming in, it's intended to be that extra support and then that case management. And one of the things with some of those intensive case management is we've had to come together as a team with all different agencies. These are not the people, these are difficult people to work with, and so a lot of times it's, we've had to work together with several of us, they're people that maybe don't want to be compliant with rules and regulations, and we have to explain to them why. And this gives a neutral party that can provide that. But can it be done within the office? Yes, but I would ask at this time, I think we'd have to look at liability with the vehicles and the transportation and that. So, I mean, because she does pick those people up to take them to their appointments. If they need help filling out an application, like I said, we've had some that can't write, they can't read. Visibility is an issue, walking and stuff, they're able to provide that extra service and connecting them.
A little more full transparency as well as what we came across on a lot of these cases is that we're referring individuals to the deflection program that are current patients at HSA unknowingly, and that has caused some conflict. I've gotten some pretty upset people call me saying, that's our client and it's counterproductive to what their plan was for them. So, we don't want to get in the middle of that. We're law enforcement, we're not mental health, so.
And it's
Part of the performance measure of the contract with LSS is to reduce the number of contacts with these repeated contacts. Are we noticing a decrease in those?
No, not considerably, no.
So I guess going back to that example, though, in theory, though, I mean, so whoever, let's say if you have an HSA patient that gets referred to either the welfare office or the deflection program, I mean, those programs' job is to figure out that you are an HSA patient and get you over there. I mean, that's kind of...
If they tell us. That's what we run into, is if they tell us. If they don't tell us...
But then it's not really, I mean, you just had it's not really anybody's fault in those cases, but that's kind of the challenge of the case manager in those cases, is to figure that stuff out. So...
And you got to remember, we're working with people that like to manipulate the systems to get what they want. So it is coming together to say, okay, because that's what we've had to do, and we've done really well, like with Independent Living Choices, the Beacon Center ICAP, and said, this is what this individual said. And we found that they'll have 5 or 6 different stories with 6 people. And so it's coming that together. So that, I mean, if that's the case, I was never made aware of that, so I was not aware of that situation taking place. But that is not the intention. I know Mary Johnson would not, she would make sure that you keep that care type thing, but it could be that the individual is resisting that treatment that they're wanting and trying to use that to manipulate. So coming together with that type of release, and that's what they do sign when they enroll in the program, is that release to open that communication.
I'd like to make a few comments if I could, just on the whole, I believe this is a duplication of services, plain and simple. Also, for these individuals, if the deflection program wasn't there, we wouldn't have the issue of them manipulating the system, because there wouldn't be an option. They're going to go where they need to go, and if they choose not to go there, they'll go to somewhere else. 211 will definitely do this very thing, because they do follow-up the next day. They do that, I've been told. They will follow these individuals, make sure they have their appointments, and it's at a reduced cost, and there's data tracking that goes along with that as well. And these officers, I mean, will be able to give these individuals that number. Most times you deflect them, and the situation is taken care of there, and that's why we're seeing a decrease in that number. But there is going to be an option for these individuals that will work just as well and maybe better.
I think 211 is a wonderful program, but I don't think it's going to fill the need. This will be a toolbox. This program will be a toolbox for those that need additional services, so I would disagree with that.
I have a couple of questions for Officer Toomey. By the way, I appreciate everything that everybody's doing, and we have so many programs, for the common lay person out there. We sort through this. Okay, the CIT program. Tim, tell us, all the officers are trained in this, correct?
We're close to 100%.
Deputies and police officers?
Correct.
Okay, what is the purpose of it? What is it supposed to do?
So what it is it's crisis intervention training. So it trains the officers specifically recognize the level of crisis and to make decisions based on their assessment. So if we get a suspicion, maybe it's a suicide call, a suicide attempt, we get there, they're trained in specific questions to ask to see, do they have a plan, a whole bunch of different procedures that they go through to determine, does that person need immediate intervention or not? And so it helps them deal with mentally ill, also people in crisis. Does that answer your question?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, my question is, the deflection program, whether it's good, bad, indifferent, or whatever you want to call it, but we have a report here that says how many contacts they've had in the past year, what they were for, and so on. The CIT program, I know I heard Commissioner Hanton said that there's a data processing that follows it. Will we get a report? What I'm concerned about is us giving up a program with LSS deflection program for putting the load on the police officers with the CIT program. How do we know if it's going to work? Do we get any reporting? Do we know? How do we know? So we don't want to leave people hanging out there.
Sure, it's two apples. You're talking apples and oranges. It's not the same thing. The CIT doesn't replace the deflection program at all.
Right.
It just allows us officers to deal with the situation on the street. It actually helps people from being taken into custody. Before it was we would take them into protective custody because we didn't know, and we didn't want to have the liability if we left, when something bad happened. So working with HSA, if we feel a counselor needs to be called out immediately, they come out immediately. We don't have that same service with the deflection program. So they have the safe room. HSA has the safe room, which if there is a person in crisis and needs to be taken into custody for a protective hold, we go to the safe room. So I think the confusion is the welfare end of it, right? It's not those people in crisis. It's the other people that don't need immediate intervention. So what happens to those people? And it is a duplication of services, in my opinion. I mean, you already have the welfare office, you already have social services, adult social services, you have, all those different places to refer people to. I really have no skin in the game. If you want referrals, we'll give you referrals, but we're worried about those people that maybe they're intoxicated and they make a stupid comment. All right, now we got to refer them to the deflection program, and not only are they embarrassed for that situation, but now they're going to be embarrassed again by being contacted by another person. Those are just this one concern that I would have with the program. But
I think what I was referring to, Myron, for the data tracking is 211. They will do that. It wasn't the CIT. Yeah, it wasn't CIT. And
no, really, 211 is, as far as I'm concerned, still out there. It hasn't. And Cottington County hasn't proven itself yet.
Right.
I mean, we haven't even engaged in it yet.
Right.
It's just the information from the counties that have it in place is what I'm going by. And so I would also piggyback off from what Officer Toomey said. HSA is 24 hours. So when you have an individual that's in crisis and you realize that you can't diffuse that, you have somebody that you call right then and there, and that individual is referred to them. With LSS, they're given a card, and then you go there the next day, or you contact that. Maybe they don't ever contact them because you can't give LSS that name because of privacy reasons. Right. So it's up to the individual to contact that deflection program.
No, actually, because we have that MOU. So with that MOU, when we get the case notes, actually it's an outreach. So the deflection program is an outreach where she actually contacts, she gets the name and number because we have the memorandum of understanding with law enforcement. Tim is exactly right. So this is not a program and is not intended to replace or be a part of that when it's that crisis. It is not, absolutely not intended to do that. It's intended for after the situation to see, are you connected to services? Do you remember? Treating people with dignity and respect and saying, this is okay. It happens, and doing with that respect and saying, what services can we connect you to? These are services that this program connected to that my office did not connect to. And the bulk of it is there kind of that underlying mental health some may be short-term, but not maybe the longer-term, but some of them are. It's an extra safety net. It's an extra safety net for that individual. We know when you've got schizophrenia, you are going to act up. This builds that safety net for that person to try to catch them through those other programs. And that's where, too, is asking, and this would probably help diffuse that. Law enforcement, we have other agencies that are seeing the benefits and saying, we want to be able to refer, and can we refer them out to that program? If we can open that, that would probably diffuse that side of it. But I also think Tim brings a good point, is taking back to LSS and say, okay, how can we increase that connection to make sure that the program is not building up a different case management program than what the mental health services already have, and coordinating those services.
As far as measuring, how do you measure it? It's nearly impossible to measure the performance of the whole program. I think I spoke to the sheriff as well. I spoke for the chief, and I speak for myself. We just don't see the need for the program. I think it's a complication of services. It's a duplication of services, and I applaud the effort. I really do, Sarah. I think you guys have done put a tremendous effort into it. You save one person, is that worth the $30,000 or whatever the money? That you gotta. That's your difficult job as commissioners to come up with that answer. But I do think there's any effort that we can to help people in crisis or with mental health issues, but not only that, with the homelessness and the other issues that Sarah spoke about is a valiant effort. So either way you go, I think it's a win. We already have these services in town.
Well, to help me clarify or understand something here, primarily with the CIT, it starts with law enforcement. You guys make the evaluation, you guys are trained. So you get a call to a house and you see something and you take it over and it gets tied in with the 211 system and they supposedly follow up. What happens to those people that don't get called to the house? How do they get in the system? How do they, if they got a mental problem with their heat shut off, or if they're, if they just don't trip the law enforcement triggers, right? And I'm not saying that there is, because I do understand a lot of this and hear a lot of this what goes on. But those that you don't get or have repetitiveness with, what happens to those people? What happens to the person that's got a mental problem and just wants to isolate himself in the house, and he's not been a problem to law enforcement? He gets drunk, he passes out, or hits his head, and
Yeah, and that happens quite often. You got hit that nail on the head, but hopefully somebody is paying attention. We get many calls from mailmen to loved ones to just neighbors. So hopefully we do get directed to those people.
I'm not going to mention any names because this is not the place for it. But I do know of one case in town here where it got cold weather and the utilities department come and put a note on his door saying we're going to shut off your utilities while he was laying on the couch in a deceased position.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just reiterate. Obviously, you all know I do not support renewing this contract. These are the reasons. I feel like connecting people to services is the duties of the welfare office. We already have that in place. That is what that office is supposed to do. Duplication of services, therefore, is a waste of our taxpayer dollars that we are just throwing into something that I don't feel is effective, and we have law enforcement that's telling us that, and our own sheriff, by his email, does not support this as well. So,
and Brenda, I'm agreeing with you, Brenda. What I'm saying is, in the effort of helping these people that don't trip the law enforcement trigger, what do we do in that case?
there will be a program in place.
What program is in place for those people?
That will,
I guess,
That's our welfare department.
One person at a time here. Lee, go ahead.
Okay, so just what I think, if it doesn't involve law enforcement anyway, I'm not sure how the deflection program's gonna do that anyway, since they're only supposed to take referrals from, so if you're not tripping the law enforcement trigger, then deflection's not gonna get a referral. Nobody that we're talking about is gonna get a referral anyway, except for those rare cases where some other agency referred. Then the other, I did have a question though. So for the MOU, it seems to me that might be a key point. I mean, I'm kind of coming down somewhere in between in my position, you know, that the deflection program is basically doing things that the welfare office does, you know, that kind of looking after and getting people connected with services and things. But there is it's kind of more mobile, a little bit more agile than sitting in an office, I understand that. And it has an MOU with law enforcement. So if you need to, if law enforcement thinks, okay, I don't think this person's going to call 211, say if we get 211, or they're going, you might be good to go check on those people. It gives an outlet for that. If say the law enforcement officer thinks, I think we might need to follow up on this person. Do we need to have an MOU with welfare or maybe some other agencies? I mean,
it is. With the MOU is through the welfare that gets transferred to whatever agencies. Then we did that in case the contract switched to different.
Okay, so that's in
so the
place.
MOU is still in.
So
still be in place.
Okay, so that's in place.
Lee, so of those individuals, how many of those refuse? I mean, you know, so it's...
Yeah, no, I'm just
The
saying,
MOU has to, the
that-
officers have to ask, the question is, are you open to receiving services and do they think the person would benefit? So, you know, if the person says, no, I don't want that, they can't. As far as it goes within my office, it's beyond the services at this time capacity to provide. Could it be done in office? Yes. Would it be probably less expensive? Probably. But I think to just cut it and switch to that without a plan in place would not be very prudent. You know, this program is starting to expand. Those 9 referrals we talked, we're in a very short period of time, and that accounted for the ones that we were able to say yes to, not for the ones that people have asked in interest. So I think those referrals, these are other agencies. I mean, you've got the ICAP that's referring, Independent Living Choices. Actually, what we're trying to do is work together as a team, and I think Mary Beth could attest to that. They had all those services. They had the crisis intervention. They had the commitments. They had all that. And this program was that additional services needed to help that individual. And so you got to go back to that individual. Are they all going to succeed? No. Are they going to fail? Yes. These are the ones that are probably the people nobody really, they have burnt that bridge. Nobody wants to work with. This is our optional last resort for some of these individuals, because they've burnt so many bridges, and one literally we're like, what do we do? And so yeah, we've I could say too, you know, when he talks about those, is it reducing some of the law enforcement? We've had some of them, it probably has increased, but it's that long term, and if that person gets to that point again where they fall, we're able to catch. But we've had a lot of successes. If this program were to quit, I know right now I've got 3 clients that are being heavily worked with Christina, that those services are done, and then therefore I don't have anything. And these are very difficult, very complicated cases where we're trying to say what services and how can we connect those services together, and how we can actually come together and not manipulate those services. But Mary Beth, would you agree that, I mean, your sister had all those other services?
And by working through the Salvation Army, I mean, we know where to go, but there's a lot of people that don't think that they're bad off enough, or that they're hurting enough, or whatever, to put a hand out. And if we hadn't been, and if we hadn't had these programs, I'm sure that I would have been one of them that found my sister dead on the street or something, because there is no place. And I don't disagree with the 211. I have worked forever through Salvation Army to get all the entities to work together. That's what we need. We need to work together. But you still have to have that foundation to branch out, and you have to have that human contact. Dory would not have done what she has done if Christina hadn't been there for her. Because with all of us in our family, and even Kim can attest to how many times she's been arrested and thrown in, and she's went to Serenity Hill, and she's went to Charlotte. I still think that one part, that if it hadn't been for this program, Dory would be dead.
You know, this is up, Mr. Chair, I'm probably one that hasn't spoken up yet, so I'm going to take just a few moments to do so. This is an issue that pulls at the heartstrings of our community and pulls at the heartstrings of just about every community across America. What it boils down to for me is in the MOU, it says that progress will be tracked based upon the number and percentage of clients who are linked to intensive case management, and success will be measured by the program's ability to lead individuals to engage in community-based care in order to improve behavioral health outcomes and reduce future law enforcement contacts. The reason that I asked you that question, Assistant Chief Toomey, is because in my former capacity in law enforcement, I know how busy we are, and I know that a lot of times those contacts aren't made. And I'm looking at the numbers, and I'm seeing a reduction in numbers. In 2018, Sarah, you came to the police department and you gave training to all the officers, and we've seen a spike in those contacts. We've seen a spike in those numbers and referrals up to 73. But now we went from 18 to 73. Now in 2019, we've had 38. So we're seeing a reduction, a dramatic reduction in those types of services that are being provided. Mary Beth, to your point, not to say that one life is more important than others, but when it comes to spending tax dollars on a program and seeing benefits, I'm not seeing it in this program. And I think we're getting hung up on CIT, and we're getting hung up on the behavioral deflection program, and we're comparing apples to oranges. They are two separate programs. The services are duplicated, yes, to a certain degree. But CIT, for you that don't know, is dealing with people that are in crisis at the moment. Okay, so for me, I have a hard time supporting the renewal of this contract. Based on that, we've had the sheriff come forth, and we've had the police department come forth now and tell us it's a duplication of services and that it's creating problems for those agencies. And that's not what this was meant to do, so I won't be supporting that today. Thank you.
All right, is there any other, we've heard a lot of compelling testimony here this morning, and does anybody else have any comments?
Mr. Chairman, I'd say, I guess I would have liked a bit more time to go over this. The current contract expires like the end of this year. So I do think there might be an answer somewhere in between if we need to find a way for the welfare office to be able to do more stuff. But yeah, this doesn't, I don't think I'm ready to renew this without having had an opportunity to maybe figure out, maybe the things in there that are worth keeping, or maybe the things in there or the modifications that need to be made, maybe another way of approaching the problem. I do think it's I'm really proud to be part of a county that we try different things, we experiment with stuff, and some things, we're hearing like a mixed review on this. So we're hearing some success, but we're hearing some, okay, well maybe we need to work this in another way. But so that's why I think we need to take what we've learned from it, and then figure out the best thing to do with that information. And I think we're seeing some redundancy of services between the redundancy I see is between the welfare office, or what the welfare office needs to be enabled to do versus what compared to what the deflection program tries to do. And so, in its present form, I don't think I'll support it. But I do think I don't want to just put a period on the end of that sentence. I think we need to be still thinking about things. One of the other bigger things, that we see in as we have the discussion with stepping up in mental health, is the warm handoff process. So maybe there's something there, and there's a bit of handoff, supervision in this case management that we're talking about, and so maybe kind of tightening that up some. Maybe that's maybe that's kind of the next step that we need to take, so that it's not a question of, it's more a question of what is the next step, and not necessarily, and maybe this is, I'm thinking this is not exactly the next step we need to take.
Commissioner Waterman had a question. If you let Commissioner Waterman.
Well, as Mr. Toomey said earlier, and we have citizens that call in and report things. We got the postmen, we got the meter readers, and hopefully the good neighbors of the city of Watertown, and they all are observing what's going on. I know I certainly try, and I'm sure you all do too, of, gee, my neighbor's got something going on there that doesn't seem right. So we do stick our necks into their business, and most of the time they are not mad, they're thankful. But I can't support this in the present time. I think there's a blending that needs to be going on. I'm scared of the people, like in Mary Beth's case, and I know a couple of them personally. I'm sure you do too, that just don't, that would fall through the cracks, and these people are important too. So do I have a solution? No, I don't, but I think at the present time this is maybe as good as we can do, with hopefully have some improvement. It started as a deflection program. It started to take care of redundancy and get some of these people out of incarceration so we're not back again and again and again. And we've done some good by the numbers. It shows that we've done that. But we've got some people that are not law enforcement involved, and this is kind of a secondary thing. So,
all right, thank you, Commissioner Waterman. I do have a question. Just as we have gone around the board table here and discussed these things, I kind of know where everybody stands on it. All right, we do not renew the contract. What happens to Mary Beth's sister? All right, that's my question. What happens to her? Because she is in the deflection program as it stands right now, correct?
Correct. I believe we have another agency in town that the referral can be made, and I would believe that they could.
Sarah, would you answer the question, please?
What I would ask, and I do think this has been, I'm glad we had the opportunity to start this program, and I think it is evolving more into actually even, we talked to the Stepping Up Intercept 1, this is almost evolving to Intercept 0. We can even catch people before the law enforcement, catching those needs of poverty issues. We do know people in poverty are 8 times higher risk of having law enforcement, having domestic violence, so it's kind of evolving into that, and that's really neat to see. We don't have the data. We have not been able to pull the data if it has actually reduced the numbers, because that puts actually a lot onto the law enforcement, the records. We'd have to pull all that information. We did that a little bit before, and it was just, we tried to do that, like once they make that connection. So to be honest, we have not been able to fill that part of the contract because it's too cumbersome. We have to take that individual, say, tell us how many law enforcement contacts did you have before and after. But it is evolving to helping those services that my office is do. It's identifying those risks earlier, and that's exactly what we want to do to be able to prevent that. But what I would ask with that, because of that, instead of just cut cold turkey, and if you're looking at possibly evolving, is there a way without this, the welfare office, it can be done. It does have to expand some services. I cannot meet the need of the clients that Christine is working with right now. Would you look and consider maybe 3 months to give us time to get that together? Because if you cut it cold turkey, it's going to be very difficult to restart that whole program. I've done that before. We've done that with housing things where we had something going, and then it got cut, and it's so hard to start. We've got the momentum. It does look good. It's doing those services to take a look at that 3 month, knowing that we're going to look at some transition to that. And just keep in mind, as the contacts are down and services are down, this program does not charge for that, so that those numbers go down on that too. So if the referrals are down within that program and the numbers are down, so does the cost, or it gives us that opportunity to refine that. So that's what I would ask. That would help alleviate that if we could do at least 3 months to renew that, knowing that we want to be able to close out those those, work with those, and also to take a look at maybe what Lee has suggested as well, how it could be done. Because I'm not sure on the vehicle part and all that, and what those costs would be with that. It's beyond just referring people, it's reaching out to that's helping them get to those services as well, and helping them to follow through, coordinating those services for those individuals.
I would just add, for the transit, we have a transit in town, so I don't know why we'd need to purchase vehicles when we have that already in place.
Officer Kermey, do you have any last minute thoughts?
No, I thank you, Sarah and Christina and LSS and the commission and the community for identifying this issue. The worst thing we could do is complicate the issue further. So if for some reason you do, when you are thinking about the new ways to do it, let's be a little more clear on what's expected, what type of referrals, those types of things. I do think that it's just not, we're not seeing the efficacy of the program right now. But I do think there's room for improvement. But again, with 2-in-1, if that's, I'm a big proponent of that. Hopefully the city and the community and the county will go with that. I think that's going to solve a lot of these issues. And to mention, like Mary Beth's sister, she's in with LSS right now, right? So that's who she's receiving the services from, or who's paying for those services?
I can't answer that for sure. I do know she's working with Christina, and I do know that she had refused services from other agencies, but I think that is the same pot of money that HSA is using, but they only have a small, I don't know, do you know?
I know like her counseling and stuff, they like the grant.
So the question is, it's not the deflection program that's supporting treatment, and
No.
This is the contract fee,
right. So
$29,000.
that's something to keep in mind. I mean, if there's other ways to get these people to these places.
She's already on those services, so wherever that funding, it's not coming through this, it's from those other services that are being provided, so.
But we had to get over that barrier to her even wanting to accept those services.
Sure, that's repeated over and over and over again throughout the
Yeah.
city. I mean, there's people with substance abuse and mental health issues, and this is the greatest thing about this is all you people coming around together to find a solution. So that would
Lee, you had a comment?
Yeah, just, thanks, Mr. Chairman. So, okay, in situations like Mary Beth's sister, like right now, couldn't the welfare office pick up that, that bit of case management, just making sure that people, I mean, if it's an issue of her getting to the appointment, and I understand, so that, she's got a relationship with Christina and everything, understand that, but, I mean.
Not at the current level of staffing. I would not be able to do resumes and things like that. And then also, it's partly is that gut contact, is that it's reaching out. I could make those calls, but it's not that into contact where Christina goes to their place to make that contact and that encouragement. I mean, I could definitely try it, but at the cert with our other calls and stuff, I would not probably be able, with our current situation, staffing-wise, to having a temp individual. But I mean, they could make those calls out. We're working with one individual too, where we were trying to shift it, where the individual comes to my office and start the services there. He's a no-show twice, and so Christina becomes that person that reaches out to them. And some of it's they don't have executive functioning. Their anxieties are so high that by the time they actually get ready to go somewhere, they've totally exhausted themselves. And it really goes back to how do you help them with that. But it also goes too, is we have some, it's like, we'll let them, it's like, well, now we've done this A, B, C, and D, we're going to let you fall on that. But a lot of these we're coming back to is how they've had traumatic experiences, and that the alcohol became the coping mechanism they to survive, and now maybe they're coming out of that survival. I mean, we could attempt it. If it worked, I would have never brought this program. So, and if I do believe 211 is a great, but I also think there's people that goes beyond. If referral services would work, we wouldn't, we would have already met that need. And there's some that go beyond that. Are you going to be that safety net to catch and to contact and call? And it's maybe removing it out of that mental health component of it and working on, okay, these are individuals that are that poverty. Definitely, can we identify them sooner, and can we connect them? But sometimes it is exactly that warm handoff, because if you have these are not people that cope or do well. If they did, they wouldn't be at my door. That's what I always tell people. If these were people that knew how to function, how to do well, they wouldn't be at my door. So how do you go about doing that? I don't know.
Is 6 months' time enough time to reduce some of the redundancy and make this a coordinated effort?
I think so, yeah. I mean, we'll make it that, yeah.
The issue at hand today, and
Well,
what's
yeah,
on
can I
here
make a
is...
comment? The agenda is to extend the contract, but also within the contract, there is a provision that either party can terminate the contract with 30 days notice. So the logical thing to do would be to approve the contract, because there is a provision, either party may terminate this contract for any reason or no reason upon 30 days notice to the other party.
In other
So
words,
if you went ahead and renewed the contract extension agreement, you would have that out at any time.
So there would be no problem with modification on the end. We could end it and start with something.
30 days notice.
Yep, 30 days notice is all you need to do. I would not make a motion
To bring
with a
another,
specific time amount right now. I think
I
you
would
should
make a
leave that,
motion that
you
we
should
renew
leave that,
this contract.
leave that open, and then based on what the contract says, 30 days notice.
We have a motion on the floor.
No, we
by Commissioner Waterman, and would you repeat the motion?
Oh,
so-
you did
so
make
you
that,
get
oh,
it?
sorry, I did not
Okay,
realize.
that's quite all right. Sometimes I don't.
Repeat the
speak
motion,
out.
will you?
I make a motion that we renew this contract.
Is there a second to that motion? Is there a second to that motion? Is there a second to the motion? Not getting a second, the motion will die for lack of a second. I'll entertain any other motions then.
Well, you can't because it's not on the agenda.
That's right. We have to act on the one that's on the paper, on the agenda. And that is action to renew a contract with the LSS for VHDP.
As it was submitted. And we always make motions in the affirmative, and when you go to vote, then you vote yes would support it, no would defeat it. I make the motion to renew this contract, but I would add the caveat in there that if it...
No, Charlie already did that, and there was no second to it.
Yeah.
There was no second to Charlie's
Amend it,
motion.
Okay.
second it, you can amend it.
All right, nope, then I'm fine.
Yeah,
I
Charlie's
thought that-
motion was to renew the
this one.
contract.
Contract.
Okay.
So it's over, right? Contract is not renewed.
It's not renewed
Not
for
renewed.
lack of a second.
For lack of a second. Right.
Moving on.
All right. All right, thank you, Mary Beth, thank you for coming in, we appreciate it. Very nice of you to share with us. Officer Toomey, thank you, and Sarah, thank you for your
Have a good day.
input. All right, let's go on then to number 12, which is the action to accept the resignation of the facility manager and action to advertise for that position. And I did read to you, you all have it in your packet, the letter that I received from Mr. Ford. And again, we really appreciate his services to the county for 29 plus years, I believe it was. And I've had a chance to visit with him a couple of times since we've gotten the letter, and they're about moved in. I think they said they had one box to unpack, and they were moved in officially now into town. So they were kind of happy about getting settled into town. So, and the basic premise of his resignation is he's eligible for the state retirement, of course. And he will be retiring, and I hope that he lives a long and fruitful life. So that's the best that we can.
Thank you, Milo.
Is there a motion?
Make that motion.
A motion by Hatton.
Second.
What's the motion?
To accept the resignation of the facilities manager and advertise for the position.
Effective January 31st, 2020.
second the motion.
Got it?
And you second it?
Correct, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Van Duzen. All right, discussion. Go ahead, Harley.
A question here. Shouldn't this be treated as two different matters? One, the resignation and the action to advise.
Yep.
Shouldn't that be two different motions?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we've
So
got a
the only
motion on the
motion,
floor
only motion
for...
now is to accept the resignation.
Yeah, that's the only motion that's on the floor, is to accept his resignation.
I guess I would just like to thank Milo for all of his years of service. He did a very good job and appreciate all of his hard work as facilities manager. And ever since I came on the board, he's always done a wonderful job, and he will be missed.
All right, any other discussion?
Mr. Chair, I too would like to echo those comments of Commissioner Hanton. I just, I can remember days when the police department was at over here in this building, and I would see Milo out plowing snow really early in the morning, and thinking to myself, wow, he had to get up at 3:30 in the morning to come out and make sure that that was all open. Milo did a great job, and I know it's not an easy job.
That's right.
That's for sure, but we appreciate everything that you've done for us, and thank you very much.
I had a conversation with Milo, and his health is improving, and I hope it continues to improve, because he went through a very difficult situation.
Yep, that's right. He'll be missed. I was just thinking about this coming weekend, and Jim is going to be leaving too, and this is something we're going to have to discuss, because in the past, I've gone north to check out the weather, and Milo's always been involved in that decision-making, whether we're going to open or close the courthouse, and Sutton has gone another direction. He's gone east or west. I don't remember which direction he went, but we went out and actually checked the weather, and this was like 5 o'clock in the morning. And, that's when we were out, and I'm going to miss Milo, because his input was important as to getting the parking lot cleaned out here, and if we could even get the place open up. So something that we're going to have to discuss down the road here. All right, any more discussion?
I just want to mention, I had the chance to work with Milo pretty closely during this courthouse remodel process, and so he was the go-to guy for getting things coordinated, figured out. I mean, he was here watching those guys work through all of that and making sure it went the way it was supposed to. Also, I should add the sprinkler, getting the sprinklers in the first floor was another part of that. So, and without Milo, we couldn't have done all that. So I really appreciate it as well. And I had the opportunity to work with him pretty closely. So
Good. Any more discussion? Anything else? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Let's go on then and finish up item number 12 with
Make a motion to advertise for the
a
position.
motion by Commissioner Hatton to advertise the position. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Second by Van Duzen. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to, I don't know if this is the proper place to talk about this, but this is a personnel matter, so I'd like to talk about it in
Probably need to do
We'll
an
go
exec.
we can go into executive session.
executive session.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other discussion that is not personal?
This concerns this matter.
Yes. Anything else? So we will circle that personnel issue in executive session when we
We
finish
do
up
have a
here.
motion and a second to advertise, though.
Yep. So you know what the motion is and the second? Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, that motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I guess when I was doing that before, can we go back to item number 11? I just have a question. What happens, Cindy, with the budget now? If there was $30,000 budgeted for that contract, and since it wasn't renewed, can those dollars be used for anything else? They just, okay.
No.
Just want to make sure.
They go back
If we
into the
need to
general
make,
fund, or where do they go?
They just
don't.
They
just
stay in the welfare budget, and at the end of the year, they will go back into the,
they can't be used
But
for
for this year,
anything
they're in
else.
the welfare
Not,
budget.
not if it's not a welfare, I mean, they're budgeted for professional services in the welfare budget.
Okay.
I don't know what else would apply to that type of.
So they could be used for something else at her discretion then?
Yes.
So is that something that we want addressed so that they aren't used for something else without commissioner approval?
Would have to be some kind of a budget action, I think, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, like some kind of an amendment or some kind of a budget action to budget-related action.
How do we fix it? I mean, how do we
I
state
would
that?
suggest you talk to the welfare director directly.
Yeah. And just say, these funds are not going to be used for this program, but they're not.
To be used for anything else either?
422 is where the funds are budgeted.
Yep.
And that 422 is professional services.
Very
Through the
specific.
welfare department.
And that's what it's going to be used for. Let's go to number 13 then, which is action to approve Commissioner's contingency transfer. What do we have, Cindy?
We have 3 budgets that need supplementing. 2 we have been doing regularly since they ran out of money. The first one is the court-appointed attorney budget,
And that's in your packet.
which will be $6,482.10. And the mentally ill budget, this would be people who are receiving services at the Human Service Agency in Yankton. That's $2,032.19. And the final one is the WIC budget, where the WIC has its own cash fund, and the cash is fine. It's just that with, increases in insurance and that type of thing, that budget will need $431.07. And that is just budget, it is not cash. They do have sufficient cash through an operating cash transfer from the general fund annually and what we receive from the state of South Dakota to support the WIC fund.
Move to approve those
Motion by Happel,
contingency
second by-
transfers.
I'll second it.
Gable, any discussion?
Gable, okay, and then, so that will leave a balance in the Commissioner's contingency of $22,421.65, which is considered unused funds. It'll just go in, roll over into our cash.
And then it's hopefully less cash.
Yeah.
So you said number again, 22,000?
$22,421.65 is the balance after we do these transfers.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. We have a request from the Elks, an intent to hold various raffles, and that is in your packet. And,
No action is needed. We just need to note that they have filed an intent with us.
So it's information only?
Yes.
Is what that amounts to, and
Yep.
we have seen it. Let's go on to item number...
And the intent, for the benefit of the press, is on or about March 27th, 2020, and on or about September 28th, 2020. They will also be starting a new game, new bingo, and Queen of Hearts raffle throughout 2020. It does list all the various things that they're going to
So that's for the
fundraisers.
whole year.
You have a copy of this, if you want it. All right. So let's go on then to item number 15, action to approve the 211 program memorandum of understanding and authorize chair to sign the application. Where are we with that?
It is still a work in progress, just getting all of the final okays on that, and we will move forward.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to keep that on the agenda as we go.
Yep.
Item number 16, discussion possible action to approve a revised Memorial Park campground manager's contract. Commissioner Van Duzen.
Mr. Chair, that is still in the hands of our state's attorney for review. It's been a holiday week, and so it's been a short week, but we
All
will
right,
be
let's
touching
keep
base.
that on the agenda then as well. Item number 17, discussion possible action to renew capital outlay resolution. Cindy, you want to share with us that request?
This resolution originally started before the year 2000. At that time, there was $350,000 set aside for various improvement projects that may come before the county. The latest resolution is dated 2012, December of 2012. And at that time, the fund has grown to $500,000. In order to keep this money, in order to keep this money as a capital outlay money, $500,000. We do need to renew this resolution. I believe the resolution is good for 84 months.
For how many months?
84 months, I believe.
84 months.
So,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Go ahead.
So I looked at this a little bit. You can see the a copy of the old resolution that I passed out from 2012. It's 2012-30 is the number of the resolution. And I handed it out just before the meeting, so hopefully everybody's got a copy of it. And I just lined out that what it basically did was put aside $500,000. And this is according to a state law that allows a county to put away up to $5 million or let it accumulate up to $5 million, and then you have to do something with it within the 84 months or 5 years. And you can keep on renewing the resolution, but this was, I think, an effort by the state to allow counties to save a little bit for capital improvement. So anyway, what I'm suggesting is just to basically line out things that pertain might pertain to the court system and just target it toward a future jail. So what it says, you can see what I've lined out there, is that the purpose of the funds would be that they would be accumulated for would be the purpose of providing sufficient secure space for the housing of inmates, and then that just lines out the wording that was there to cover kind of the whole judicial system. And then also I'd ask the board to keep in mind that this is something we can change at any time. It's just we just have to take action at least once every 5 years to make sure that we're paying attention to it and the state of those funds if we're not able to use them within that 5 years. So
And in that 5 years' time, how much can we grow that to?
$5 million.
If you go we can go up to $5 million.
Yeah. But,
which would be a luxury.
Which is kind of,
Yeah.
Yes.
So all we're doing is renewing the resolution with
What we'll be doing is passing a new resolution.
So I'd make a motion that we pass a new resolution with the corrections that I've noted. I can read them to you again so that everybody can.
You need them read? You need them read again?
I can read them
I'll
again.
second that motion.
Lee, how about the fourth paragraph? Is there anything there? Because that also addresses space and security for judicial systems.
Oh, yeah, we should, okay.
Want to
Thank you
cross
for saying
that out also?
Okay, let me just.
Secure space
Secure space.
and security.
Probably you want security
Oh,
left in
yeah, that'll
there.
be taken out, right?
Just judicial system procedures.
We don't want to box ourselves in so that we can't use it for anything other than that,
Well,
though.
I think.
And you can,
We can change
amend
it.
this resolution at any time.
But I do think that the law is saying that you do have to say what you intend to save for.
Yes,
so
right,
that's
it
why
does.
we
They
have
want you to
say that. So
specify.
if we change our minds about what we're saving for, then we can come back and just revise this resolution or do
You
a
need
new
to
one.
take action.
Yeah, so if
For
we,
example, if there was, we don't even want to talk about it, but a fire or something like that.
Fire, a road,
Okay.
something, a bridge, yeah.
So
Yep.
Commissioner Waterman just asked that I read this again. So
Okay.
basically, the third and the fourth paragraphs say the same thing, but the bottom line is in paragraph 4. So be it further result that the sum of $500,000 is accumulated per South Dakota Codified Law 7-21-51 to provide sufficient secure space for the housing of inmates.
All right, you got
So
that?
that's the
Just having this on or renewed doesn't mean that that's
No.
going to happen. It's just giving
It's
us the
just allowing
authority
us
to
to
do that.
continue.
No, but I think it does make a subliminal deal to restrict the funds, and therefore I would like that scratched off there to leave it for general purposes, not have any reference to law enforcement or.
By statute, it requires a
It
plan.
requires a specific.
Yeah, we can't
Requires
do
a
just general.
specific?
That's what it has to be.
Okay, then add maintenance and highway buildings.
But then it's not specific, though.
That's specific too.
Well, here's what I would suggest. I mean, we have the space to change this at any time. We also have one other thing I wanted to mention is that we also have the Future Building Projects Fund which we can accumulate.
Use for anything.
We can use for.
That can be used for
most-
anything.
Yeah, most other infrastructural things. I mean, so this is only earmarking a little bit of that, I guess the funds that are outside of that unprogrammed reserve. So I think that the intent of this law is, to make sure that we don't, collectively all the different laws that pertain to budgeting and what are called surplus funds in law, is to make sure that we don't have just too much unprogrammed surplus. And so this is why, if you're going to have something that's over that 40% of the budget that's for the
That can
unprogrammed
go into
surplus.
the future building program.
Yeah, you have to say what it's for, basically. And so this is one of the mechanisms to say what it's for. So so we just, since it's time to
Basically,
review.
Commissioner Waterman is jumping through the hoops.
I understand that.
Yeah.
What
But
I'm
I understand what
questioning
you're
is the
saying, yeah.
terminology. Instead of putting that on there, why don't we put a future highway building?
We could, I mean, that's,
Instead of the court thing.
but we already have a motion on the floor.
And a second.
And
I second it.
And a second. Any more discussion? Good discussion, though. Good discussion. In 5 years, when we renew this again, Harley will keep you in mind, okay? Speak up then.
You can do it anytime before then.
Yeah, anytime before. Any more discussion? Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
No.
same sign. We have one opposed. You got that?
Correct, yep, I have it.
All right, go on to number 18, action to designate a future building fund.
South Dakota law requires counties to have 40% or less of unassigned funds. Or we're allowed a maximum of 40%. I prepared a spreadsheet putting us at 35%, just to keep us, just to try and make sure, because all of this is based on estimates right now. I have no idea what money's going to come in before the end of the year, December 31st. I'm just basing it on what our cash is right now, what estimating it on the taxes that have been paid to date. So I would put our unreserved, undesignated fund balance at 35%, which would allow us to put $7,691,057.62 into future building projects, which is, according to the law, we can only have 40% of unreserved, undesignated funds. So we are assigning these funds to a specific
Can you say that number again?
$7,691,057.62 would be the amount that we are allowed to put in and still maintain a 35% surplus cash fund.
We could actually go to 40, but this
We
is
could go to
35.
40, but to protect us, to make sure we don't go over that based on what money could come in before the end of the year, this would be my recommendation.
I will make that motion.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Gable, second by Hatton. Any discussion? Any discussion? Now, this is a future building fund. Any more discussion? Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Let's go to 19. Approved claims for payment.
We have two types of claims today. We have payroll claims and we have regular verified claims. Let's do the payroll claims first, which is in the amount of $577,880.50. This is also the month, per our policy, that we pay out longevity to all employees who qualify. To qualify for a longevity payment, you have to have 6 years of continuous service. You get $100 for that. You get from 6 years to 10 years, you get $100 per year. And that amount goes all the way up to $900 for any employees who have been here over 25 years. And we do have a number of those. We are getting more and more of those, I should say. So the total amount of the payroll, within this payroll number that I just gave you, $16,750 was for longevity for employees who qualify. Just a note of interest.
I'll make a motion too.
And the total
Second that.
payroll.
Total payroll was $577,880.50. Who made the second?
I did.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right.
We had a number of claims that it was in the best interests of the county to take care of before the end of the year. I did send out a claims list. That first item there, annually we receive reimbursement from the state of South Dakota for the amount of money we have had to spend on public defender fees and court-appointed attorney fees. I don't know what's going on at the state treasurer level, but they have sent us correspondence that they overpaid us. They sent us correspondence a month ago, so we cut a check paying them back. We also received another correspondence in the last week saying that first amount was incorrect. We owe them more money. So we had to spend another $616.92 out of the money they gave us that goes into our revenue fund to pay them back for what they are saying they overpaid
So what's the name of the fund that they, or the thing?
It's a revenue account for the amount of money that counties have to spend on court-appointed attorneys and public defenders. The state has a, trying to find, I don't know if I have it here right now. The state has a formula that they use based on counties' size and how much we've spent, and then they prorate it and send it back to the counties. Well, there was an error made in the amount they sent out to counties in probably the end of November, I'm guessing is when it happened. So they asked us to please pay them back, which we have done now for the second time. I do have a letter. It's called the pro rata shares of the court-appointed attorneys and public defenders are divided among counties based on each county's expenditures. And they have found a couple of errors in their formula or something. Anyway, the total we had to pay back was $957.50. This check is only for $616.92 because we did pay back previously, and now we've received this letter again. So hopefully everything is straightened out there.
Do we wait another week and see if another letter comes?
I'm hoping not. And then also in the commissioner's budget, there's a claim to Claims Associates for $1,635.70. This was for outside counsel for one of the wind energy lawsuits that was filed against the county. We also received our audit billing from the Department of Legislative Audit. That was $22,880. I needed to purchase new laptops for my election system because of the Windows 10 change coming up, because we use laptops for all of our early voting. That's how we check the people in.
Cindy, I have a question. On the audit, is that about what you budgeted that? Is that the amount that you budgeted?
I think probably a little bit less.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just we never know how much federal funds we're going to have, and the federal funding that they have to audit really raises the price, but we did not have a federal audit this time. Let's see, I also had to replace this laptop to make sure it was Windows 10 compatible. As long as we were paying some larger bills, we did pay the credit collections just to get caught up with those, and the public opinion bill has been kind of lagging behind, so in order to catch up on that, we also did that, along with our Visa bills that we always do at the end of the month. Also, there were a couple of large projects that the Highway Department had going. Clark Engineering is doing some kind of study for us, and Rick submitted a progress billing on that one for $3,105.70. And then the riprap project that Clausen won the bid on, we're also making a progress payment on that, which is over $380,000. So it's in our best interest to get that paid off. We also paid Jeff Argo Excavating, and it says riprap project there, but it should say culvert. Yeah, it should say culvert. We also paid our 911 surcharge to the city of Watertown for $23,388.97. And then Search and Rescue had some miscellaneous supplies that we also paid.
All right, you
Move
heard
to
the thing.
approve those.
Motion by Hammond, second by Van Duzen. Any discussion?
And the 911 surcharges is pass-through money.
Yep, it's, we
State
have
law.
the contract with the
City.
city of Watertown, so yeah.
Any more discussion? Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you. Number 20 on the agenda is action to approve automatic budget supplements, Hall Road Agreement reimbursement.
We have received reimbursement from Crown Ridge Wind 2 LLC in the amount of $3,077.30, which matches a claim that we had to pay to Banner Associates for the Hall Road Agreement creation. We just can put that back into their budget.
Move to approve.
Motion by Hatton, second by Waterman. Any questions? I think that was the total amount of the bill, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
It's total bill. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We have personnel changes here.
Nope.
No, we just,
personnel.
go to travel. Go
Travel
right-
requests.
Yeah, we got a couple of travel requests.
The first one is the Weed and Pest Supervisor requests authorization to attend a bird and rodent commercial recertification. That is a one-day travel, minimal costs. Second one is for the Highway Superintendent to attend the NACE conference, and that is in April. And he gave you some estimated costs there. I believe this is a conference that the Highway Superintendent attends annually.
Move
And
to
that's in
approve.
Pensacola, Florida.
Move to approve.
Motion by Hatton.
Second.
Why did I
Second
think
by
it was in
Gable.
Alabama?
Pensacola, Florida, it says.
Well,
Yeah, but destination is Baldwin County,
Then you're
Alabama.
gonna fly into there, apparently.
Yep, I don't know, okay.
But the conference is in
All
Alabama.
right, yeah,
But I think the flights to Pensacola.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
And that motion was by,
I've made the
A motion
motion.
by Hatton, second by Gable.
This is a budget.
Any
amendment.
discussion?
yes.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Possible quorum that we may end up, a bunch of us may end up passing. Do you know of any? I don't know of any.
I don't know if anybody's planning on going to the Gracie Gold thing on Sunday, but I'm
The what?
Gracie Gold. Okay.
She's
The
the,
Community Foundation is bringing her to town. She's an Olympic figure skater, and so I'll be there. I don't know if anybody else is going. But
Depending on the weather.
Anything else? How about old business? Any old business to bring before the
Mr.
board
Chairman,
today?
Mr. Chairman, can I just,
Yeah.
I just want to hit something that's going to, I have a slide or two that I wanted to show you guys. Wake up, sir. Wake up, wake up. I know the sheriff couldn't be here, but I did want to, I've talked before about sentenced versus unsentenced numbers, and I just want to let you guys know that Matt and I have been working on pulling the data out of the Zerker database in the jail. We've been working on this for, it's probably going on 2 years now, and it's a very complicated thing. So a bit of good news is the numbers, this is unsentenced versus sentenced in the jail, and you can see the overall ADPs, and this is a by-year graph, and that 2019 figure is through the end of November. Okay, so you can see, you can get a sneak peek at what the average daily population is going to be, something in that area, but that doesn't include December. But the thing I wanted to point out to you is that the unsentenced population, though it's still high, it's not as bad as we thought it was, because we're still figuring out, how to pull the data out of the Zerker database. So you can see, compared to say 2013 and 2014, it's high. But if you look at 2019 compared to 2018, you see some improvement, okay? And so we got to thinking about I've been thinking about, what's causing that. And one thing that, if you look at the next slide, you might be able to see it. This is a by month, just showing the last 13 months. And back in November of last year, the Third Judicial Circuit implemented a policy to lower the incarceration in jails, and they did that by mostly eliminating most misdemeanor incarcerations. There's still some exceptions where you have to talk to a judge, but as I've gotten into this problem, and talking to the sheriff and everybody, learning about, what law enforcement officers are doing to answer this policy from the Third Circuit. So it might be that. So that means that the unsentenced population would go down relative to the sentenced population. So that's apparently a good thing. You can kind of see a general trend of reduction from November of last year going up to now. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that to you because, so on the one hand, unsentenced is still higher than it used to be, but it's not as bad as we thought it was. And the other factor that might be involved in that might be the additional courtroom too. So, but we'll see, it's, as we get into this is probably more data analysis than I think this county's ever done before. We're probably one of the few counties of our size anywhere in the country that's doing anything like this. But it's a very complicated set of data in that database, but it's also very capable. So just figuring out how to pull stuff out of there. But anyway, so
those numbers are really controlled by the judges.
Yeah, to some extent, but also there's an overall thing where we're trying to work on the process, and as I think we've gotten more kind of, I guess, just a lot of discussion about it. Meanwhile, the Third Circuit is trying to help us out, trying to help the jails and their circuit out to some extent, and that might be why you see that dip, going from 2018 to 2019. So that could be a bit of good news. So.
All right.
Some of that, what the judges look at is like their lower level felonies and they're flight risk, or they risk to others, and they have an evaluation that they're trying to.
Yeah, it's not kind of like we wanted to do that PSA thing. So it's not as hard and fast on that, but it does set a policy in place and. That basically says, if all these misdemeanors we don't incarcerate, except for these few, and there's the more serious ones, obviously, and then you have to talk to a judge, or there's certain very specific conditions, and Troy knows what I'm talking about as a former law enforcement officer. So, but anyway,
it's a nationwide trend that the unsentenced is always, that number has grown through the years.
Any other old business for the board to hear or to act on today? We can't act on it, but. Any other old business? How about new business? Any new business to consider?
Just to sort of put everybody, Mr. Chairman, just to put it on everybody's radar. As you know, we had in the past year we had some issues with our website.
Yeah.
So where it kind of died and had to come back to life, and that was that was just one of those things that happened. I have been unable to contact the current provider just to kind of make sure we have good contact in case we have something else coming up. So I do think we probably need to be looking at getting some quotes on, providing the county website. So I've been looking around informally. So
it looks good right now.
Right now it looks good, but if we do need to.
Is that a service that First District also?
I can check with them. I don't think they provide that, but I've been getting the names.
They have, I think, someone who does that sort of thing, though. So it might be something.
Yeah, but I'll be. If nobody objects, I'll see if I can get a couple quotes from hopefully local providers that can do that. And then basically what we just need somebody to do is to maintain it, give us the ability to log in, and if we need to post something on there, like so if I want to do a committee agenda for the Justice Advisory Committee, or if Cindy wants to do the minutes, something that we can do the user-friendly stuff, and then they can do the hard stuff and keep that maintained for a reasonable price. And so that's I think the way it's set up now is pretty functional. It's pretty good. So.
There's a limited number of
an option for you. We'll talk
after. But so I've gotten a couple. I haven't contacted any local ones yet. I contacted one of the national level ones. It was kind of expensive. But we'll see. Just to let everybody know.
At least we'd have a place to go in case we get into trouble.
When we do this, like right now, isn't there a limited number of people who has actually access to go in, or is each department head able to go in?
There's a number of people who were trained to do minor things.
Yeah, it's not too hard to do. You just have to be trained to do it, so you don't screw up the whole website.
For the security of the website, there were only a few of us that were trained.
That's what I was thinking, that it's not unlimited, or it's not everyone can do that.
Any other new business? Anything else? Seeing none, then what about public comments from anybody in the public out here? Any comments? No comments. All right. Commissioner comments. Any comments from the commissioners? Hearing none, let's go on. We did ask for an executive session by Commissioner Waterman, and that would be item number 1. I entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Before we do that, we will not be meeting next Tuesday, correct? So,
It's the fifth Tuesday,
Yeah.
so
The next commission meeting is
January 7th,
January 7th.
which it does reflect at the bottom of
Yep.
your...
Yep.
Just for the record, Charlie, what is the purpose of the executive session?
Personnel matter.
Personnel? And is there going to be any action after?
I'll make that motion to go into
We have a
executive
motion by
session
Hal to
under
go into
number
executive
one.
session, a second by Van Duzen. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. We are in executive session, and it should not last very long.